All right, everyone, welcome back to YouTube. Diving in today on a subject that I'm really starting to hone in on because of the fact that I personally believe that there's a lot of fake people out there trying to do this stuff, and they don't actually have concepts that are real and applicable to what works in life and what actually works in business and what works with people. So that is the subject of leadership. So I wanted to dive in today and talk about leadership because leadership is a big part of all of our lives. Whether you believe that you should be a leader, you want to be a leader, that you're going to lead groups of people, it doesn't necessarily matter because at the end of the day, you wake up every single day and you get out of bed and you take a direction in that day that moves you in some direction within your life. Some days it's backwards, some days it's forwards. But at the end of the day, we all are leaders of, at minimum, our own lives. And that means that we need to start building some leadership skills. If we want to be effective as individuals, we should want to build leadership skills that improve our position to accomplish certain things in life. I can imagine anybody that's listening right now, at least to this podcast or this YouTube video. Sorry, was recording some podcast stuff earlier. Hey, if you don't know, I have the Art of Masculinity podcast. Go check it out. But if you're watching this YouTube, you're not somebody who's just aimless in life. You have goals, you have ambitions, you want to do something more than where you are right now or do something in life in general. So, leadership is one of those things that you are going to need to harness, just like everybody else that has any form of ambition in their body. So, what do I mean by this in the sense of like, why are we talking about it? Or what do I want to talk to you about specifically in leadership? Well, what I've been seeing, first off, is a lot of people who don't actually have experience in leadership. And just like anything, would you want to learn from somebody who doesn't have experience with it? Or would you rather learn from somebody who has a deep involvement with effective leadership and education on top of that? Not just one or the other, but both, right? I'm always going to take the person that has both. I'm not just going to take somebody who has education. And a lot of times I don't just want somebody that has experience. Now, if you give me only one of those options, I will make a choice. But if the third option shows up that has experience and education, I'm going to take that one every single time because they're basing their leadership or basing what works in leadership not just off of theory, but off of application. And then they can base theory off of actually application. So now you're starting to see cohesiveness of both modalities. What I've seen a lot are, in books, they're nice to haves. They're things that if you had an abundant amount of time and you had a very flexible schedule and no real pressure ever at work or a team that's malleable and basically not humans, yeah, sure, they'd probably work. But the fact of the matter is that's not real world. And on top of that, they're typically not tools that are going to be super effective for your life. So I want to disregard a lot of that stuff and bring in what works, and then also bring in the things that I've seen work through my experience as a manager, high level manager within the federal government, as a special operations leader, as a tactical commander for the U.S. ambassador to Iraq, and use that experience to couple it with the education of having a master's in organizational management, where I can give you guys real things that actually improve your position as a leader, whether you're a manager in your business, whether you own your own business, whether you're a solopreneur or somebody with a couple of employees or 1099s, whatever it is. And I also want to be able to help the average person that wants to lead their life better, lead their family better, right? So all of that being said, let's dive in for a second. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about is the fact that if we're talking about really effective tools, I've pulled out 3 tools that I've seen that I think have been incredibly effective for not just myself, but a lot of leaders that I've watched and are tried and true. They can persevere over any environment and they will allow you to not be stagnant or they won't allow you to um, have paralysis in any environment, whether it's high stakes leadership or whether it's just everyday normal leadership. The tools I've brought out allow you to move past any form of stagnation. They allow you to move past any form of resistance, and then they allow you to overcome those things to be an effective leader and also to lead, experience, adapt, and shift. All of those take place in effective leadership. The first one I'm going to tell you guys, if you want to write it down, it's called leverage. Now you're probably like, what the fuck, Johnny? Leverage. I get it. Like, yeah, leverage. Leveraging imperfection. That is what I'm talking about when I talk about leverage as a leader. Most people that want to say they're perfectionists are just simply procrastinators, and they're very insecure with themselves. They're insecure with their knowledge, their abilities, and their talents. They do this to shove off having to make a decision and execute on that decision. That's what being a good leader does, is they execute on imperfect information and imperfect environments, because nothing is ever going to be perfect. You will never have all of the information, no matter what you believe. And there's a minimum level of information you can actually gather that leads you to have an educated decision in which you can confirm and execute. So I want to talk to Colin Powell, or speak to Colin Powell's quote on this, because it's a big favorite of mine, on how he viewed himself as a leader. Obviously a well-renowned leader, but how he reviewed himself as a leader was the fact that he would make a decision with no less than 40% of the information he believed he needed for that situation. And he would make a decision and execute with no more than 70%, which means that he always operated between the 40 and 70% range to create and execute decisions. What does that tell you guys? He leveraged imperfection. He was never waiting for 100% of the information, and he knew he needed at minimum 40% to make a decision that he could feel comfortable with, that he wouldn't expose himself or the mission or the team to a vulnerability that could harm any one of those three. So at 40%, he could make that decision reasonably knowing that whatever consequences came after it, he was able to mitigate that environment. Okay? That is what a good leader does, because at the end of the day, your bottom line as a leader is to identify your objective or your mission and to execute on that, to move forward at all costs so you can get there. Now, what does that look like in real life? Well, maybe you want to make $1 million in your business. Okay, that's your goal. Well, to do that, you need to execute. That's your mission. And as a leader, you need to look at the steps to get you to $1 million and continually execute and execute and execute and execute. Although you experience failure, although you experience hardship, you just continue to execute. That's what leaders do. What does that look like as a manager? Well, you have a goal as a company, and you're in charge of potentially a branch or a unit, and that unit has a goal that feeds into the overarching goal of the business. And you need to know that so you can drive every person on your team to that goal and make sure that every action you're taking is in pursuit of executing that goal. Okay? That is what a good leader does. They leverage imperfection by utilizing information available and not seeking to have an overabundance of it, and also looking to always improve if they have too little. It's knowing where that 40 and 70% is, and when you know that you're in that space. All right, the next one I want to talk about is overcome. Now, a lot of you guys are probably thinking right now, like, oh, Johnny, here we go. Like, this isn't unique. Overcome adversity. We get it. Shut your mouth. It's not overcome adversity. Not adversary. It's not overcome adversity. It is actually overcoming procrastination and internal resistance. That's what I mean by overcome. Those will show up in your life. It does not matter who you are. You will have the devil on your shoulder telling you that you don't need to execute something, that you can do it tomorrow, that you can do it the next day, that you can do it the next week, the next month, the next 6 months, the next year. You will have things trying to push you down the road because you are coming up against the edges of your comfort. You're coming up against the edges of where you are like, oh, I actually have to put in work, gain knowledge, and do some work to execute. But I like where I'm at. I'm comfortable where I'm at. You're going to experience procrastination and internal resistance. And good leaders know how to overcome those things and not allow the fear within them to drive the decision-making process or lack thereof. They understand that when those come up, they are first and foremost aware. Good leaders are aware when resistance and procrastination comes up in them. Because as soon as they're aware of it, now they can identify it and shift the perception on what actually needs to get done so then they can execute. And that execution is moving past it. The more frequently a leader pushes past the edges of comfort, pushes past the things they don't want to do, the more a leader flexes that muscle, the easier it becomes and the more efficient they get at it. And the less they experience procrastination and internal resistance. And actually, they leverage the internal resistance because it flags them that it's an action they need to do. On the other side of these things we don't want to do is typically our biggest gift, whether it is a massive hurdle or a massive or a opportunistic door opening. On the other side of this resistance tends to be our biggest gifts, the biggest advancements. That's when they happen. But you got to get on the other side of it. And most people are unwilling to do that. They're terrified. They get into a paralysis and then they retreat. And the door stays closed. The window stays shut. The opportunity fades away. So you either need to get comfortable with that or you need to say, no, I want more. I'm looking for more in my life. I'm going to be a good leader who can move past those, because then you bring the rest of your team with you, or then you open up your life to something more expansive. And then you get to reap the benefits of those things. Now, Mel Robbins had an amazing quote. For those of you who have not read her stuff, she has the 5-Second Rule, which is an amazing book, but she's phenomenal. I love her stuff. And her quote that really resonates with me is, if you only ever did things you don't want to do, you'd only ever have everything you'd ever wanted. If you only ever did things you don't want to do, you'd only ever have everything you'd ever wanted. That to me is a mic drop moment. It blows my mind at how much we run away from the things we don't want to do instead of executing and having all the things that we want in life. We live decades doing this. And the simple thing that a leader can do is execute on the things they don't want to do. Because now you're showing everybody else what is possible. And you're also showing everybody else that resistance is just a flag to let you know you need to push further. And they'll follow you there because you're leading from the front. The last piece to this is cultivate courage. All right. Now, again, it's not on the battlefield. Cultivating courage means looking at these fears and allowing yourself to say that you are going to move past them. And this is why these three tools all blend together. You need all of them together. You need to harness all of them together to be a high quality leader, because courage is infectious. If you show that you are courageous to combat fear, stagnation, procrastination, adversity, then you are going to enable and empower the rest of the people that are with you to do the same thing, because they know they're not alone. But you have to be willing to move forward on your own to empower them to do the same and follow you there. They need to see that. And you need to take that fear and harness it, because that fear is so powerful. Fear allows us to do some of the most amazing things in this world. Fear is a tool that can be leveraged within all of us. If you use it to act, to move forward, you will tend to do it at such a higher level than normal because of the fear you've generated. You will crush it because of the fear you've generated, because it is causing so much in you that you don't want it to come up and be a reality, that you will do literally everything in your fiber of being to not have that be your reality. That fear is an amazing, amazing tool. Leverage it. Cultivate courage in the face of the fear, and you will be able to combat all of those things that are holding you back right now, the limitations, the limiting beliefs, the stories you've received from people in the past, the experiences that have paved the way for your current being. You will blow past all of them if you can cultivate courage. Utilize that fear and cultivate courage. All right, everybody. If you are looking at being a leader, somebody who is an entrepreneur with at least two people that work for them, whether they're W-2s or 1099s, whatever, like if you're creating a team and you are an entrepreneur, this is for you. If you are a manager in any type of business, this is for you. And if you are an individual who wants to learn how to lead themselves and their life better, then this is for you as well. I have a 12-week course called Independence, that is kicking off September 30th. If you want to take part in building on these skills and much more for 12 weeks with me, then come join Independence. Click the link in the show notes below and make sure you guys come and join Independence. If you do, shoot me an email, johnny@johnnylsasser.com, that you signed up through YouTube, and let me know that you're excited, what you're excited about. And then I am going to give you a couple different offers on top of that. One of them will be my signed book. Okay. And then I have one other gift for you. So if you guys are interested in doing this 12-week intensive course where we're going to have PDFs, you have videos, you have Q&As, you have hot seats, we have a lot built into this, come join Independence today. All right, guys, I'll see y'all on the next one.